Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This big show we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Roswell, New Mexico. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we're dealing with the aftermath of last episode. We learned the truth about Heath and Dallas, and obviously we got a peek into the past about like Dallas's circumstances being tied to the Lockhart machine. It's basically been going off every 47 days, but that's because Jesse interfered with the machine. Like, basically, the way Michael, like, figured it out, basically being that Earth has a certain resonance that, the machine kind of taps into, and it's kind of been fiddled with by, Jesse, and that's kind of what's been causing the issue. So, like, beyond that, like, you know, trying to figure out, like, what's at the heart of the machine, they need Dallas's help, because obviously it was meant to be, like, him to get the message. But, you know, now the question becomes, like, well, how did they handle the whole Dallas thing? Because Kyle and Isabel meet up, and it's like Isabel's ready to, like, tell him the truth, but Kyle, looking at his, like, scans and stuff like that, kind of has a better understanding. I mean, obviously, like, he's had enough experience with aliens to kind of know what's going on. Obviously, like, you know, same thing for Liz. But the conversation is, he's a man of faith, and I wasn't quite sure what he knew about his circumstances, because I felt like he didn't know he was an alien. I think Keith didn't know about the alien angle as well. It is just a situation of, like, they knew he had some powers and there was something there. Because it's actually really sweet, because, you know, at a young age, like, Dallas is like, why are you going above and beyond for me? This is beyond just being bunkmates. And he was like, we're all each other has. And I think that's the beautiful parallel to, like, their relationship kind of explains, like, Max. It mirrors Max, Michael, and Isabel, because, like, for a long time, all they had is each other. But then you actually look at what they have now, their family's grown. Like, they have so much more than they probably ever thought they could have had, you know? And I think that adds a beautiful element to it. But, like, Heath and Dallas have only ever really had each other. And they didn't go into it this episode, but he still doesn't know about the ties to Rosa. So it's like, right, when that comes out, where it's like, she's going to be like, wait, you're an alien? It's like, wait, are you one? And she's going to be like, well, I've got powers and I'm kind of part alien, but not really part alien. It's a complicated thing. That's going to be an interesting conversation when they eventually meet up. I'd hope that comes up within the next episode, because no one else knows about her connection to Dallas, that he kind of pointed her in the right direction. So I was actually thinking that eventually, I mean, and I think it could still apply, but I think she's going to be potentially a key factor in continuing to point him in the right direction in certain regards. But nevertheless, like, the point was, like, Kyle was saying, like, him and Isabel need to kind of, like, help Dallas come to this, because it's like, right, he's a man of faith, and we basically flipping his entire world upside down, so we need to kind of take it slow, so let's kind of work together in that regard. But things get complicated in many different facets when you have, you throw in Sheriff Taylor, who's asking a lot of questions, because it's like, right, she calls in Max, and it's like, yeah, there's so much you're connected to. Even throwing out Pete, I was like, oh, I didn't know Pete's body got found. It's like, yep. And so I guess, like, Jones didn't bother disposing of it, even if he did. I mean, I don't know if he's going to the point of, like, he needs to burn the bodies, like, to cover it up. Like, he probably just left the body as is, and I guess he just didn't even bother, like, it's like, right, you served your purpose of giving me the energy I need, and other than that, I could care less. Like, you know, my plans are moving along, so I don't need to, like, hide in the shadows anymore. I'm a cut through this planet, whoever I need to get what I want, so. But she's asking all these questions about how he's tightly knit. He's like, I didn't even know Pete. She's like, yeah, but you and Pete didn't get along. Also, there's the ties to you being connected to Noah. You know, well, she specifically said, obviously, your brother-in-law, but Noah, his death as well. So it's like, for her, it's like, he's like, I'm trying to do what's best for Roswell. She's like, I want to believe that to be the case, but I am rarely wrong. Which is like, truth be told, is she's like, the fact of the matter is, you might not have agreed with the way she approached everything in this episode, in this season, but she's really good at what she's done. She has pieced a lot of this together. She just doesn't know the alien fact. She doesn't know the evil clone that's out there doing its thing. Well, he's the original, but still, like, all around, I mean, the body he's in right now is a clone anyway, because God knows, like, how long it's been since his original body died. But But also, Max isn't just, in another clone body. Like, his body, like, Max's body is a clone body. The body that Max is in right now of Jones's is a clone body as well. So it's like, there's so much going on that she's missing the pieces. And that's like, the big crux of a lot of this stuff. It's like, right, everyone's kind of missing pieces to the puzzle. Because, like I said, Alex and Michael are trying to get the machine to Dallas because they need him to, like, open it. So... And obviously, Liz needs Dallas's help to find Heath. But luckily, he talked enough about Liz. So she was like, hi, my name is Liz. He said, oh, yeah, the lab partner. So he immediately, I was like, okay, so, like, this is where Heath goes for, like, what's the word? Like, the heavy science he's doing. So, all the while that's happening, Heath and Jones show up to Kyle because he's trying to, like, he's a few steps behind Liz when it comes to figuring this all out because he's still at the CRISPR stage as she was a while back. So it's like, right, he hasn't found out about what I known about saving Maria and Max, like about the sound waves and stuff like that. But sadly, he ended up getting Liz's bag from Kyle's office. Luckily, Sheriff Taylor showed up when she did, because if she hadn't, Jones would have killed Kyle just to remove him from the equation, because he broke all this stuff. Because he was trying to reach Heath of, like, I get it. Like, I can actually help your friend Dallas. Like, I get you're trying to save him. I understand alien physiology like no one else does. So, like, I can help you potentially. But, like, you're going to be selling your soul. Like, essentially Jones is the literal devil, like, being the dictator and everything. So... But luckily, Sheriff Taylor showed up in time. But she has questions for Kyle, because it's like, okay, so you went missing for a couple of days, and it's like, well, I was with my uncle, and it's like, yeah, you ran away from a crime scene, your stuff, and your car was left behind. Like, what's up with that? Then also, Isabel went missing for about 2 days. And it's like, should I be questioning her? He was like, no, Isabel had nothing to do with it. I didn't think about it at the time, but I was like, oh, he did kind of get a little defensive about it. And it's like, wait, is that Isabel and Max's file? And he burned it. Obviously, he had every right to, considering, like, oh, she had a warrant, and she would have looked through those files, and, like, she probably wouldn't have been able to find anything discerning. Like, it's just, he panicked in the heat of the moment, because it's like, right, like, if they start, like, looking through those files, they might pick up on, like, get certain people to look through. It's like, oh, this isn't making any sense. It's like, gotta protect the alien secret. Like, he's part of, Alien Club, we got Clone Club, which kind of applies in this case, too, when it comes to Max and Jones, but obviously I'm specifically referencing Orphan Black, but, like, in this case, Alien Club, and it's like, right, we can't let outsiders know about what's what, so... He burned the file. But it's not until later on, like, the signs have probably always been there, but it wasn't until this episode I was like, Kyle likes Isabel. I never noticed that. Like I said, there probably have been instances of it, but I just never really realized it, because it's like, because Isabel's like, why'd you fall? She's like, it doesn't matter, because he was just like, yeah, kind of like, it's like, because the conversation came up about, what could the sheriff have said that set you off? It's like, her, like almost like threatening Isabel in the sense of saying, like, oh, she's a suspect. It's like, no, she had nothing to do with this. It's like, Kyle likes her. It's like, oh, that's actually really sweet. I was like, oh, that's interesting, which is kind of hard considering she's already kind of in a budding relationship with someone else. And because at the end, he's at the bar, and he kind of like, the moment he turns around, that's when it solidified in my head. It's like, you like Isabel. Holy crap. And she's completely unaware. So that's going to complicate things. Like, that's going to be interesting how he's going to, like, how that's going to go, like, I don't even know if Kyle 100% realizes it. Maybe he does. I'm like, but that's still, like, an interesting development. Like I said, I'd have to go back and look to see if, like, there probably are instances of, like, oh, it's pretty clear that he likes her. I don't know. But because Kyle did get locked up, Isabel first, Michael was around, Dallas, but, like, he's trying to make up excuses like, oh yeah, this is what's wrong with your vehicle and stuff like that. But then Michael made, like, some excuse about something, but then Dallas is like, yeah, but that piece that you're saying is wrong, messed up, has nothing to do with the engine, so why are you trying to keep me here? Luckily, Isabel shows up, and obviously she has to try and break it down to him, and she basically turned his entire world, flipped it upside down, being like, cool, like, I know you can hear my thoughts, because she tried to read his mind earlier and got knocked on her ass. It's because like it was like he didn't do it intentionally. It was like a subconscious like instinct to kind of block out like an outside like attack, and not attack, but she's like, right, I should have known like to not try to invade someone's mind without consent, but she was able to kind of like show Dallas like, right, you can hear my voice inside your head, and it's like, because he's, you know, once again, he doesn't know he's an alien, so in his mind he's been thinking this entire time that from a faith perspective that he has been hearing the voice, like God has given him the power to hear people's prayers. So like from him it was a perspective of like, right, my your entire, like, you know, he built everything around it because he thought he was crazy for so long until like he joined the youth group and made him realize like, oh, like God, I can hear people's prayers. But then she's like, no, you can hear people's thoughts, like me and Michael, and see, and she shows off her telekinesis, trying to make a giant smiley face with that stuff at the junkyard, and it ends up freaking him out, and then she freezes him in place, which I love. Later on, Kyle's like, wait, you can freeze people now? It's like, well, it froze him in place. Not much, which, okay, makes sense, but also not much better. And they try to use the machine, which Dallas has been seeing that machine in his mind for the past 25 years, and that's caused him so much issues, so he ends up freaking out and running away. So that didn't work out. But then Alex is talking to Michael of like, why aren't you talking to him? Like, you read his file. It's exactly like you. And that, for Michael, that's the issue. Him and Dallas had the exact same life because Max and Isabel had the luxury of being adopted by a good family. Michael didn't. Michael went from place to place, and that led to some complications growing up, like why he is kind of the way he is, like the different foster homes that he was in. And, you know, Dallas bounced from foster home to foster home as well. So it's like, when Michael looks at his file, he sees too much of his own history, his own past, and he doesn't want to, like, talking to Dallas would mean, like, confronting his own past, and he doesn't want to. But Alex is like, you can't be afraid of your past anymore, you know? So ultimately, at first, he's the one that ended up talking to Dallas, because he's like, right, I knew where to find you, because he's like, yeah, I've had similar spots, you know, when I was like kind of dealing with stuff that I'd run off to. He's like, you know, when I saw you, I was like looking in a mirror, and I love Dallas being like, black and beautiful. It's like something like that. He's like, yeah, like one of the families he belonged to was like a very religious nut family. And when he got angry and he threw, like, because the oldest in that foster home had an issue with him, he got angry and threw him through a window. They thought he was possessed by a demon, but then eventually when all the crosses and stuff didn't work, like, they began to think, hey, he is the demon. So he was 9 years old at the time, had no idea who and what he really was. And obviously Dallas had, you know, similar circumstances of, you know, that, and obviously Isabel sits down with him. She shows up as well, and it's like, right, because Kyle was able to convince her, like, right, I was so afraid of you failing that you were so in your own head about like needing my help there. It's like, right, like he's a man of faith, like you would have been able to reach him, but I got too much in your own head about like, no, you need my help to kind of like pull the band-aid off. In this metaphorical sense. And it's like, no, you never did. Like, you can do this. Like, you know, that you are the best option for this. So then together was able to reach Dallas, you know. The fact is that, you know, because once again, like, the mirrors to, like, because obviously, like, Heath represents the Liz, can also represent the Liz in this equation as well, because it's like, Liz ended up saving Max and Maria, but because a younger Dallas and Heath, because Heath kind of like, he was not making the progress he wanted to make with his life, and he kind of felt like all he was good at doing was failing. And Dallas is like, you never failed me. Like, when time and time again people thought I was crazy, like, knowing that something was going on with my mind, you were the only one that, especially when doctors could never find anything, you were the only one that kept convincing me to look deeper, and they did. That basically, his mind being the way it is, kind of deteriorating, it's not fit for human life, you know? But that's what he set out to do, like, right, you're saving me right now, and I'm going to do whatever I can to save you, Dallas, because he almost kind of wanted to just to turn to God, which Heath was like, God can't heal you. He's like, yeah, but apparently no one can, Heath. But that's what kind of set him on this path, dedicate, the same dedication that Liz has to Max, even before, and Maria, but, it obviously started with, like, Max, but it's, like, that dedication, like, once again, the parallels between their stories, it's, like, they started at different points, and somehow, because obviously, like, Liz, like, obviously, like, she's been around Isabel, Michael, and Max since they were kids and stuff like that, but it wasn't until, like, she's got older and came back to Roswell that she found out the truth about who and what they really are. Obviously, like, aliens have been, like, a figure in her life. She just didn't know it. Same thing for Heath. He just wasn't aware that his best friend was an alien, so. But obviously, like, there's a situation with, Max, like, because Isabel, like, no, not Isabel, but, Liz is feeling responsible that all of this is kind of going wrong, and she kind of feels like this is on her, but it's like, Max try to tell her, like, no, like, Heath's missteps are his own. It's like, yeah, like, we, understanding, like, why, that he's making all these missteps in an attempt to save his friend, which, once again, it's like, right, like, what you would have gone through just to save me and Maria. And so, like, all the death and destruction that's kind of followed, that, they end up, like, going to that biolab, and they found a scientist who was, killed by Jones, and it's just like, it's frustrating for Max, because it's like, the fact is for him, it's like, he can't get out of his head the fact is that, like, he is a tool for war. It's like, whichever side of, like, because at the end of the day, on both sides of it, he's a tool of war. Whether it's, the fact is that Jones wants his body so that he can continue his, like, cloning thing and, like, controlling Max's body. And keeping permanent residence there. But then you also have, like, Nora and Luis, who basically stole his DNA to make him to be a means of stopping the dictator, to be that they have their own goal for what they wanted Max to be, which Liz is telling him just to forget about, like, what Nora or Luis or even Jones. But for him, he's like, I can't, like, I chose Jones. It's like, whatever the case may be, there's still a connection between us that, like, I ran away from Nora and Luis and chose Jones. Like, he's been a step ahead of us, like, manipulating us the entire time, and that's the most frustrating thing for him, is like, I never saw all this coming. But it's like, your genetic doppelganger clone, like, no one could have seen that coming. No one could have, like, seen everything, like, falling out the way it has. And so I thought it was so fascinating where, because Max is worried about, like, what if I fulfill that destiny? Like, what if I, am just bound to kind of be that repeat of the dictator, which in his, like, because I think for him, it's like, it's so ingrained in who I am. But Liz is telling that's not the truth. I mean, Isabel and Michael and we love you because we see the kindness in who you are. Like, you are one of the most caring people. She's like, even if not even your own body right now, I can still see, like, that kindness in your eyes, because it is that conversation of, like, nature versus nurture, kind of like destiny. Like, is his destiny going to be set in stone, like, because of him being the clone? Like, is he just bound to, like, repeat history, or can he be kind of what Nora and Luis wanted him to be, rather than, the dictator, to be the savior, to keep the key to, like, ending Jones' reign and his reign of terror and everything. So it's like, it's like, can you escape destiny? Is it inevitable, or can it be changed? And I think it already has, because of Max's experience, because he didn't grow up. He grew up to become his own person. Like, I don't know if Nora and Luis ever had it in their mind that things would ever play out this way, but I think this is what they hoped for. Like, his time around humans, his time around Isabel, his time around Michael, like, it all forged him into the person he is, being the opposite of Jones. But maybe there's just some things that are so encoded in his DNA that he's bound to repeat himself and become the next dictator. He hopes that's not the case, but we'll get to stuff later on, wondering whether or not destiny can be fought, or, like I said, is it set in stone. So, but Liz was able to convince Heath, like, right, trust me, you don't want to have the guilt I have over things. Like, I get, like, you are doing everything you can to save your friend, so let me help you. Like, I can help you save Dallas. But ultimately, the person they're with is Jones. And the moment she kisses him, she felt it being different. And so he's got Heath and Liz and Taylor, because Taylor's like, who are you? Because you're not Max Avon, because I just tased him and handcuffed him. But then, like, he's threatening to make her kill herself. I was like, please don't, please don't. I was like, okay, luckily that Liz was like, okay, like, don't. And he's like, all right, but you have to come with me. And she's like, fine, I'll do it. Proceeds to shoot Taylor in the leg, because now he has a hostage. Now it's like Heath and Liz had no choice but to follow his demands, you know, or other people will get hurt. So, and then finally we get the really interesting development of like everyone's gathered together. Alex, Kyle, Isabel, Michael, they're all like working on, you know, it's like, right, we're going to activate the machine. Because basically this machine might be the key to figuring out a way to stop Jones, also to help like save 2 planets, not just Earth but also Oasis, and even Kyle being like, yeah, saving the soul of someone I don't really like that much, referencing Max. But Dallas is like, well, saving souls is kind of my territory. So the moment he activates the machine, who's standing in front of him, like who's a mirror, who's a message inside of the machine, a memory, and it's like Theo. It's like, of course, Theo's your dad. It's like, what's this does that once, like, immediately my brain was like, it reminds me of Once Upon a Time. Like, to me, when I think one of the, like, there's plenty I love about Once Upon a Time, the TV show, but to me one of the coolest aspects is the connectivity of just like when you draw, like, if you put every character on a giant like board, and then you use red strings to kind of connect all the dots, like a conspiracy theory, like a just how everyone's connected. It's like, oh, this character's relation to this character and how you can tie them together. It's interesting like that, and it makes sense because Theo was just as much a part of this, because he was the one with the science behind the cloning and stuff like that. So it's like, right, me, the engineer, Nora, the empath, Luis, like, we set out, we are the triad, we set out to try and make a better, like, save our world. It's like, you know, it's like we wanted a better place for our children, you know? And that's also the interesting thing too, because Max always thought like he was a part of this, but sadly, like, he's always kind of been separated from it, which is interesting once again, because the connectivity, considering like Michael is like, him and Max are like brothers, but also it's like he's not a part of this because he's the dictator's clone, but the dictator is Kyle's dad. I'm curious. I'm assuming the body he's in that Max is in right now is specifically Michael's. Like that's probably the clone that gave like that the DNA for Michael came from, which is weird to say, but I'm like, not let's see, like before then, like he had already switched bodies, so maybe that's not even like, it doesn't matter. It's like, no, the DNA's still all the same. It's like, we still haven't really dabbled in that conversation of like, right, Max shares part of Michael's DNA because they are, you know, that's his dad, so that's going to be weird, but that's a conversation we still haven't really had, which I'm surprised they haven't really touched on that, but regardless, all the information about what was necessary to sever Jones' connection so that he can't do the whole hopping into clones things, to kind of end his immortality, leave him with what body he has, and kind of sever that connection once and for all, is being downloaded into Dallas's brain. And at the same time, this is all being said, like, lo and behold, the two aliens in the room, obviously being Luis's child as well as Nora's child, right there, along with the ride, because like they are the triad working together. And I'm like, that's so fascinating that we are here where we're at, you know? But, yeah, obviously got Alex and Michael, like Michael able to finally face his past, because he's you know, because he went so long bouncing from family to family, and that's also why he like kind of always like kept his distance from people, like why he always tried not to get too close. But for him, he found his family, like a family, like, you know, after all his hardships and everything, facing the past and recognizing the family he has now, which includes Alex, you know. And it's like what they have feels right, even still feels cosmic, you know? Because for him, it's like, where I am right now, I know with you, Alex, I'm home. Because like, it's like, right, we're not the same people like we were back in high school, like having to sneak and being together. And, but behind the back of the truck. It's like, no, we're different people. We've grown. We've gone through a lot. We've changed, and we can just be us here in this moment without Jesse interfering or Michael's situations interfering. Like, it's like we can just be us in this moment. So it's beautiful. But obviously Max is calling up about, like, right, Jones has got Liz, so there's that. But then also Dallas confides in Kyle, because Kyle's like, right, I can't guarantee you I can help you, but I'm gonna try my best. But it's like, right, it turns out there's stuff from his dad, like, obviously, like, flowing out of his mind about all of this, so he's writing it down. But he also got a message from his dad that Isabel and Michael didn't hear, and that is that if Max can't fight his destiny, it's up to Dallas to do what's necessary, because Isabel and Michael will never give up on Max, and so it has to be an outside perspective of doing what's necessary. Like, if Max can't be stopped, like, he has to be destroyed, like, and it's up to Dallas to be the one who does it. So, like, a lot, man. That's a lot to kind of dude, this there's just so much being packaged in here, and I love it. It's so wild to have the circumstances and developments we've had so far. I'm so excited to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. Once again, I brought up Rosa, but, like, Dallas doesn't even know about Maria. Like, and that's going to be a whole complicated thing. I'm like, all right, this is my great niece, but it's like we're kind of about the same age. It's a whole complicated thing of, so it is neat that they were able to find someone else besides Jones with Dallas, but it's so interesting getting, like, someone else this late in the show, this late in the season. Like I said, like, I knew they were doing something special with the moment they introduced Dallas, but I was like, I didn't know what they were doing with that. Never would have expected it to be like, yep, he's an alien too. So that's definitely going to be fascinating. And once again, like, he's got just as much of a legacy in this as Michael and Isabel, because, so it's definitely going to, like I said, it plays more into the fact is that he's part of this, like, once again, like I said, because it's like, you would think, like, oh, it's Max, Michael, and Isabel, which, yeah, they are, but it's more Dallas, Michael, and Isabel just because of their families, all of their parents being gone, and them being, like, the triad, and it's like the triad is now living again through their children, picking up the mantle, finishing what they started, But, yeah, like I said, I'm fascinated to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.